What's up, guys? What's up, guys? Fati the Afghan Mystic here. It's been a while since I posted a video. I am working on I am working on expressing myself more clearly, more authentically, more directly without doubting myself. So if you feel like you can relate to this, there might be something in here for you. I feel like I think we all have this experience, at least a lot of us anyway, right? Where we feel like we have imposter syndrome, or it just feels like the market, the world, the reality that we're living in is oversaturated, right? Everyone's an influencer, everyone's a content creator, everyone's an artist, everyone's out there like expressing themselves, living their life, doing their thing. So why why would I do the same thing, right? These are the thoughts that can cross our mind as an artist, as a creator, as an individual, as somebody who feels like they have something to say or something that they want to share with the world. But, I am also in a space of overcoming that mindset and learning that I feel like this is the time to be sharing that, the time to be expressive, the time to be open, the time to really be yourself and let your authenticity and let your soul shine. I feel like there's so much that I always want to say, and sometimes we just need to pause. My heart was racing extensively before I started recording this. So feel like my breathing's kind of hard, like I'm in my head. I feel like, I don't know, me and my husband and his cousin were having a conversation last night about boredom. And I was like, I don't think that I'm ever bored, right? Like, I feel like there's stuff that I do. Yeah, there's more that I want to do, but I never feel mm, confirmation. I never feel like I'm actually bored because I feel like there's so much that I'm doing. Like, whether it's, pulling cards for myself or journaling, or creating a collage now because I've tried to get back like into doing art, walking the dogs, going outside, taking pictures of trees, literally just being working on being present in my body. It's gotten a little repetitive and mundane because right now I'm not working. I got into a car accident at the end of September 2025, and that like took me out of work. So I'm still going through physical therapy. I'm still going through a lot of like physical, mental, emotional, spiritual healing. And I don't think that ever ends. And I really do believe birds for confirmation. I really do believe that everything does happen for a reason because the way that that all happened was ridiculous. Like, I was literally 10 minutes away from home at a stoplight talking about how grateful I was that, I overcame my anxiety and I drove to a different town to go hang out with my cousins and go do stuff. And then, literally 10 minutes away from home, I got rear ended at a red light. And that was like a really jarring experience. I, knock on wood, have never been into like a full on like somebody has hit me car accident. The last accident I was in was probably when I was 19, 20. And even then, like, I didn't hit anyone, right? Like, I spun out in the rain, um, and I ripped off. my fender and stopped facing like oncoming traffic, and I was in shock. As I feel like anybody would be. Lucky for me, there was a good Samaritan who helped me out of my car and moved my car to the side of the road because he was taking his kid to school. Whoever you are, man, thank you still for that day because I was in shock. I didn't know what to do. And after that, I didn't have a car. I wasn't able to drive for a while. I had to get rides from my family. I had to depend on my family at that time. And I remember how hard that was for me because I haven't always had the experience of being able to depend on anybody. I've always been very independent. I've always, taken the burden upon myself and not like had the ability to ask for help or even felt like anybody could help me. But in that time, I remember I was going through such a hard time because at that time also my dad had left to go work overseas. Um, and so I was staying with family and I was all alone. Like it felt like I was all alone. Like it was a whole different experience. That was a really tough time in my life. But I remember at that time, like I really had to depend on my family to like take me to work. They had to, and I was working overnights back then. They were real ones for, working out a schedule where and somebody would drive me to work, drop me off at 8, 9 o'clock at night, and then somebody would pick me up at 7 in the morning. And just sitting here saying that out loud makes me just remember those times and how hard they were. And I feel like I'm drawing parallels to where I am now. Lucky for me back then, again, nobody hurt me. So I physically wasn't in any pain. I was just in a lot of shock. I had a lot of anxiety. And honestly, I think a lot has stemmed from that accident, but also the rest of my life. But since then, like I said, knock on wood, I haven't experienced that. A lot of people in my family have, but I, haven't until now. And so going through that experience, it's been so hard. Specifically because right now I am married and I am depending on my husband. And the guy, he works so hard and he works in the cold, he works in the heat, like he does so much. And I think there's a part of me that does feel guilty for relying on him. Um, because who wants to see their partner working that hard, Not to say that like he wouldn't be doing that regardless. But I feel like, being somebody who's sensitive, being somebody who's so used to doing everything on their own and having to like once again take a step back and rely on someone else and like have that help and be accepting of that help. It's a very strange place to be. Um so I don't know, maybe that's a story for someone, maybe there's somebody who can relate to that because it's not easy as an empath, as somebody super sensitive, as somebody who again is so used to, taking the world on their own shoulders. It is not it's not that simple, asking for help or allowing yourself to be so open in the place of being vulnerable enough to admit that you actually need help, right? And being open to voicing that and asking for that and advocating for what your needs are at this time. But also, there's a big level of surrender. Um, and I feel like I'm still at a point of surrendering. I think all of last year for 2025, for those of you who are into astrology and numerology or whatever, just like your intuitive experience, 2025 was probably a super heavy year for me. I know that I'm not the only one. So if you had a good year in 2025, I love that for you. Send some of that energy this way. But if you had a rough 2025, I stand with you because it's been tough. And energetically, 2025 was a 9 year. So in numerology, nines are all about completion, about endings. It was also the year of the snake. So that was transformation, shedding old skin, old identities, old ways of being, so that we could step into this new year, um, with new perspective, with new excuse me, abilities, being more transparent, being more authentic, and just really allowing ourselves the opportunity to have a clean slate and to start fresh. And with the Gregorian calendar, obviously, still in winter. So the real new year is going to be, the spring equinox, which isn't until like mid March. And that's around my birthday, which is crazy. So now I'm just like, oh God, what's going to happen now? Because last year, during right before the spring equinox, like we were at the ass end of like the winter season, and it was going into our first full moon eclipse for 2025. I knew things were going to change at that time because the year before, around November, December, I started feeling this, intuitive nudge that things were going to be different and things were going to change. And the place that I was working at, I was no longer going to be there. Like something was going to happen. And it had happened to me a year prior as well, where I was like, oh, I feel like I have to go. So when I was working at this crystal shop, in 2023, 2023, I think it was 2024 that I had manifested going to Hawaii by myself. But it was so funny because I was convinced that I was going to move to Hawaii at that time. I told my husband, I said, get your shit ready, get the dogs ready, we're out of here. But then once I manifested that trip and like I went there and I just spent that time there, I was like, maybe not right now. Like it doesn't feel like I have to live here, but maybe it's just a place that I feel really connected to that I can, go visit, God willing, whenever I can. But when I took that trip in 2024, I had been working at that crystal shop for I think a year. And I was like, listen, I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't really know how to explain this. I just understand that my intuition, once I get a message and I get a feeling, like there's nothing that can stop me from following that. Unless you're God. Okay. But if you're another human being on this planet and you try to control me or tell me no, it's not going to happen, buddy. If there's something that my soul is like calling to, I'm out, dog. So in 2024, I had, told the owner of the shop, like, listen, I'm going to help you, like, cover your bases. I'm going to, hopefully help you find somebody to hire and train and stuff. But by this time this year in March, like, I got to be out of here. Like, my soul is calling and I got to follow it. I got to go. And so I did that. And, at that point, she was understanding and she had hired someone else. And, things were going good. It was all good, whatever. And then once I came back from Hawaii, I took, another few months off and whatever. And then eventually I was like, okay, bitch is struggling. Like, we definitely need money to pay our bills again, but also like I really missed being there. It was somewhere that I felt at home. It was somewhere that I felt connected to. I had grown significantly just in my own intuition and listening to myself, believing in myself, believing in the nudges I was having, the feelings, and like really expanding on my spiritual journey at that place and at that time. And so I think it was like maybe September, October of 2024, a few months later, where she was like, listen, I need your help. And I think, we could help each other out. We could both, like, you could use me, I could use you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? That's great. Because at that time, I was struggling and I was like, okay, universe, if I need to go get another job, you know, mind you, I have not worked for someone in like pre-pandemic, like right before the pandemic hit was the last time I had like a real outside job. And I had also like dealt with a lot of grief and other things at that time, so it didn't really last. Then I had to move to Virginia. Like there's so many things that have happened in my life to bring me to where I'm at now at this point. But where was I? I lost my point. So, I after during pandemic, after pandemic, I had started like a crystal jewelry business, and it was the first time I actually like did something by myself and felt really proud of it. I felt drawn to it. I was, I had a website, I was doing readings, I was creating jewelry, I was doing custom work. I was really creating from my heart. I'm getting clarity right as I say this right now. When I first started making crystal jewelry, it was literally just because I felt so drawn to the stones and they were so beautiful and like the intentions that they had. Like when I started creating, I was just creating because it made me happy and it felt really good. I wasn't like, I didn't have a plan to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to start a business. I just started making stuff. And then at that point, I was like, oh, well, I have a lot of stuff. I guess I could start, a business. I could start selling this stuff. And that's what I did. And I did that for a couple of years, as I was, kind of also in and out of this crystal shop. Um, and then at one point, I took a break from it all because I was like, you know what? It's a lot of work. Like doing markets, doing events, doing like it's physical, mental, emotional labor. Like it was a lot. Working for yourself is one of the hardest things that you can do. Okay. It's rewarding as shit, but you're definitely working overtime and no one's paying you for it. Okay. Like this is just a goal and a dream and just your belief system that is like pushing you through this. Like I have to keep and so I took a break from that, and then I ended up going to Hawaii and then I came back and then she was like, okay, like we could help each other out, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? Great. Cause again, at that time I was like, okay, God, like what am I supposed to do? Because I tried to go back to the market. It didn't feel aligned. It wasn't feeling good. And, I did a couple of sessions and I was like, I just don't think that this feels right now. Like I'm forcing myself to create. I'm not doing it out of enjoyment, like enjoying it or enjoyment anymore. It was like, okay, you have to do this because you have to make money. And then it's like, when you force yourself to do something, you're literally resistant. So ask me if I was making money. Obviously not, because there was no like joy in it at that time. It was out of necessity and that was not working. So I was talking to God one day and I was just outside. I was at freaking Barnes and Noble because I've always loved like I have a million books. You can't see them all because they're up there, but I have a million books. I always have loved the bookstore. Like I just, you know, it's where I just relax and I thrive and it's just, I don't know, amazing. And I love it. So I was walking around Barnes and Noble and I start kind of like looking at jobs and I was like, am I supposed to get a job again, God? Like, what am I doing? If you want me to get another job somewhere, just tell me. I'll do it. Okay. I will get my head out of my ass. I'll stop being so stubborn and I will do it if that's what you want. But just give a bitch a sign. Like, I'm struggling. And so, literally, like, as I was thinking that, then I was driving home and I was like, it wouldn't be so bad. Like, if I had to go back to work, I wouldn't be mad going back to work at the crystal shop because it's somewhere that I did feel at home. It's somewhere that I did feel joy. It's something that I am passionate about. Not just like selling crystals, but connecting with stones, learning about them, connecting with people, helping people find what they're looking for, but also just mm, that community connection. Ugh, spirit is so loud. So literally the next day, the owner calls me, texts me, was like, you know, I think we could help each other. And I was like, I'm hired because this is literally what I asked for and I'll take it. I'll see you ASAP. Like, yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. And so, that ended up working out. They had ended up expanding and like moving to, the downstairs and like making it bigger. They had a lot more. And so like I had helped set up like during the summer and stuff just because they were still my friends and it was something that I enjoyed. So I was like, well, I'll just come like help you guys during the summertime, and to like help you set up and whatever. And so I did that and then, ended up back working there, I think in the fall of 2024. And so that's when we had started, we launched our first, not our first, because I had hosted, excuse me, my first full moon circle at that shop the year prior. Right before I left for Hawaii, I told myself, I want to I want to bring this dream to fruition. I want to gather in community. I want to, host this full moon circle because it's something that was really important to me. It's again something I was passionate about because I had experienced one 2 years prior, the first time I went to Hawaii. That was also uh very divinely led. That was a trip I never thought was going to happen in a million years. And then for me to go in 2024 on my own, crazy. The dreams really do come true, okay? And as I'm talking about all of this, like a lot of stuff is clicking for me right now. So I'm definitely going to have to play this back because I know there are tidbits of wisdom and spirit is coming through clear. So before I left in 2024, I told myself I want to host this full moon circle. You guys don't have to do anything. I'm going to do it all by myself. I'm going to make the flyers. I'm going to make the posts. I'm going to create the intention. I'm going to do the layout. I'm going to do it all. I just want you to show up. That's it. And I did it. And that was another moment that I felt really proud of myself because I was like, okay, like I'm not insane. People like this, but they also like we're on the same wavelength, right? Like people want to gather in community. They do want to learn. They want a place of growth and connection and to be able to have these experiences and learn more so we could all do it together. And so I did that. It was my first and only one. And then I left, right? But then when I came back to work in the fall of 2024, I felt that calling again. I was like, let's start this up again. We have the space now. And then a friend of mine who had started out as a customer at the shop, a very frequent customer, she had gotten her Reiki certification and her sound bowl certification. So she's certified sound healer and Reiki practitioner. And so I was like, okay, how about, we come together, you can do sound bowls for us and, do the sound healing session. And I was like, I'll try to lead the circle and, we can do something together. Like it would be really cool. And so we started and it was amazing. It felt fantastic. Like it was great. We're like, okay, we're building community. We have the space now. We're doing all this. Amazing. And I felt so good about it. But then around November, I got, that intuitive nudge that I wouldn't be there anymore. Like once again, March was coming up and I didn't really know what, I didn't know how, I didn't know what was going to happen, but it was just like, you know, this is it, buddy. Like, you're doing the best you can here right now, but you're not going to be here that much longer. And I was like, fuck, dude, like, is this really happening again? I can't go through this again. But sure enough, um, it was interesting because at that point, the girl who had worked there, she got pregnant and was on maternity leave. And so I was basically filling in. I was like, okay, if this is the time that I have from now until whenever she gets back from maternity leave, I'm going to work as much as I can because this is the opportunity to do it, right? Like I have the hours, I can work, I can make money, I can pay my bills, like everything can be set and I don't have to worry about anything. And so I felt really good about that. But mind you, I was working, I don't know, maybe 4 to 6 days a week. It was getting excessive for somebody who hasn't worked like a full time normal job with normal hours, in years. It started to kind of basically wear on my mental and physical and emotional health. And even though I loved the place and, I was obsessed with everything we were doing, I was just getting exhausted. I was getting burnt out because I was like, this is too much. I'm not used to working this much, this often. And it's not something that I want to do. It's not something that I wanted to do. And it wasn't something that I felt that I could go on with any longer. And so March was rolling up and I was starting to gather the courage to tell the owner and be like, listen, I think we need to have a conversation about hours. I think I bit off more than I could chew, and I'd really like to, take a little bit of a step back and see where we could go. Before I could even have that conversation, the eclipse energy hit, and it hit hard, and it literally eclipsed me out of the shop. Weeks leading up to that point, this was mid-March, March 14th, I believe, is when it happened. It was a Friday. It was a Friday. I Leading up to that point, I just kept getting this inkling that kept telling me I was going to get fired. And I was like, why would I get fired? I think I've talked about this on a previous video. Why would I get fired? I literally don't do anything wrong. I have anxiety. I have autism. Like, my brain overdoes things so that I don't get in trouble, so that I don't do anything wrong. And like, I try to over communicate to understand and have clarity so that I like nothing happens. And so I was like, why would I get fired? Like, that's so stupid. Like, she's literally my friend. Like, we have good communication, or so I thought. Um, like, why would that happen? Like, that's crazy. And her and other people at the shop were like, you're literally insane. Like, why would you do that? Like, why would that happen? And I was like, I don't know, but I feel like I'm getting fired. Like, something's gonna happen and I'm literally gonna get fired. Okay. So that week leading up to the eclipse, the energy is heavy. She's out of town, on a business trip for other stuff. And I'm in the shop. And I think at that point, the assistant had come back from maternity leave. And so, like, she was kind of, getting her bearings to kind of get back into action. And it was a lot, which I get it. But during that week, the energy was so amped up. Everybody was on edge. Like, we were being watched on the cameras. We were being texted, like, micromanaged, and for some reason at that point, like, that was it for me, because I was like, why are you treating us like children? Why are you treating us like we haven't been running this place for 2 years, that we haven't been the ones that have been helping you? Why are you being like this? It was so weird, but I knew intuitively, and as her friend at the time, that I was like, okay, she's going through her own transformation right now. Like, she's, in her own kind of dark night of the soul, coming to a because, there was a different business. She didn't want to do it anymore. She wanted to, she was going through her own transition. But I feel like a lot of it was being projected, and it was being put out on us at the shop, and then me specifically as well. Just because I felt like maybe, like, I'm somebody that's close to you, so maybe you think that it's easier for you to just take out your stuff on me. And some stuff had happened at the shop, like, during the time that she was gone, and then eventually I was like, what is going on? Like, it just felt off. And we hadn't talked in a few days while she was gone. And I show up to work on Friday. I am 35. I will wear crop tops until the day I die, unless I decide that that's not something I want to do anymore. Okay? But if it's in my control, I will always dress exactly how I want, and I will be who I want. And not a soul on this planet can stop me. I'll tell you that right now. You guys don't see why this is relevant, but it is. Sips tea. So we hadn't talked in a few days, but I was just, okay, whatever, like, going about my business and trying to think about, okay, when can I have this conversation with her? Like, maybe when she gets back, we'll set aside some time to, like, sit down and have an honest conversation about what's going on, how we're both feeling, and just, all of that. Didn't even get that opportunity. Came into work on Friday wearing a crop top, and then I get a weird text message saying that counts as a crop top, because apparently they didn't want us, in crop tops anymore, just because of some teeny bopper who ruined it before my time. Also, I'm a grown ass adult. Don't fucking tell me what to wear. That's crazy, especially when it does not affect business, and it never has. And this is how you met me, and this is how I showed up. And now you're trying to control me and change me, and that doesn't sit well with me. among many other things. So I get this really cryptic text message. It's like, that counts as a crop top, which means you haven't talked to me in 4 days since you left, but you're stalking me on the cameras and you can't even be like, hey, let's talk when I get back or something, something, right? So, of course, that triggered me because I was like, this is insanity. Why are you doing this? And I left it for a minute. I left it for a little bit because I was like, okay, I need to simmer down so I don't say anything that I'm going to regret. I'm just going to take my time. So I did. And then I don't remember what happened. There was another message and then I just went off. And I was like, you know what? I don't feel good about this. I don't feel safe with you right now. You're making me not feel safe. And I don't know how else to get you to understand what I'm telling you. And me expressing my truth and how I felt snapped this person. And they literally told me to leave my keys in the lockbox and to leave a note on the door. They wanted me to close in the middle of the day because they were upset and they just wanted me out. I'm not unprofessional. I'm not going to close the shop in the middle of the day because you're upset and you couldn't handle the fact that I was expressing my truth and that you didn't like what you were hearing. Why would I close a store? Why would I do that? That sounds crazy. I said, I'm not going to do that. You're clearly not in a good place right now. We can have a conversation about this later. Done. I was leaving for a camping trip that weekend and I was planning on having my other friend come in and close the shop for me so I could go home and finish packing and head out. So I did that. And then I sat on this for the next 2 days because I was like, before I left, I texted her. I said, I'm not closing the shop. I don't think that you mean any of that. And you're clearly upset. So we can talk about this later when everyone's calm. And I left it at that. And then I, went into the mountains and I went camping with the boys and I was with nature for the eclipse and full moon. And I was out there and I asked for clarity. I asked for peace and I asked for, God, what do you want to show me at this time? Like, just help me make sense of this moment. I came back refusing to ever set foot into that place again because I said, never, ever, ever, ever will anybody treat me like this ever again in my life if it's something that I can help. So even though I was exhausted on that Sunday when we literally barely got back from the trip, I hadn't slept, I was literally shaky, I was exhausted. I was like, I don't even want to give you the satisfaction of being able to see me in person. I'm going to pick up my things and you're never going to fucking hear from me again. That's where I was at. So I went in that Sunday. I picked up all my stuff. I, you know, did what I needed to do. I gave everything back that I needed to give back. I logged whatever I could. I grabbed my shit and I peaced out. But ask me if it was with peace. Of course not, because of course she had to have the last word. Did you guys see that? She literally was watching the cameras and, sent me one more fuck you kind of text. And I was like, okay, like that was unnecessary because obviously it was going to do that. But if you have to get in your last word just because that makes me feel better, fine. So I did that. I grabbed my shit and I walked out and I haven't been back since. I went through so much internal grief over this situation because I genuinely believed that this person was my friend and that they would never do anything like this to me. But then it reminded me of other times, of other people, of other situations that I've dealt with friends that I'm no longer friends with, who I also felt like, oh, they would never do that to me just because they did it to someone else. Of course they're going to do it to you. You're not safe. Nobody's safe. And of course, not somebody who has the ability to stand up for themselves and not want to conform and be bossed around and controlled by somebody who clearly has their own insecurities. There's nothing to do with me. I didn't do anything. All I ever did was bust my ass and lose sleep over how much work I did to help shape this place into what it became. And I put in my blood, sweat, and tears into it as well. And it was something that I cared about significantly. And then to have that torn away from me as well, it shattered me for a really long time. It shattered me because it felt like a true injustice. Like, how could you do this to me? I've done everything for you. I've shown up for you. I've been dependable for you. I have been over backwards for you to, you know, help and create this atmosphere. And then you just shit on me and kicked me out of the door. Crazy. So, yeah, that happened. And I feel like that was a really big lesson for me last year. And it just carried through the rest of the year as far as, are you going to stand up for yourself? Are you going to listen to your intuition and your intuitive nudges? Are you going to listen to the universe when they show you and tell you that this can't continue any longer? You have to trust that, even if you don't know where you're going, this isn't it. Like, you need to trust your inner knowing, because the amount of times that I experienced in this place that I felt was my home, that I felt was safe, people trying to stop me from listening to my intuition, trying to tell me to be practical, that I need to be grounded, that I need to have my basic needs met. While those things are all true, not a single soul in this world is going to stop me from listening to my intuition. And I don't give a shit what the price is, okay? Because the price of not listening to your intuition is so much higher and not worth it than, having the strength and the courage to believe in yourself, to trust in God, to trust in the universe, to trust in yourself and your own inner knowing when you have seen the proof time and time again. So I transitioned from not working, full time there, to also at that point I have moved in permanently with my husband and his family. And that was a big transition because I'm not used to living with that many people, and we definitely didn't have a lot of space, and that was just a whole journey in itself, and I've gotten to a better place with it, as you can see. But was not easy in the least bit. And then not working on top of that was even harder, because I was like, what am I supposed to do with myself? Like, I lost the one place that I felt like was home. I lost, the community that I had helped build. I lost, I felt like I lost everything. Obviously not my husband, and my family, which thank God. But at that point, like, for where I was at and how confused I was already, like, it just felt like I had hit rock bottom, and I was just so confused because I was like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, where am I going? What am I doing? I have debt, I have bills that need to be paid. Clearly, I tried to start door dashing, I tried to look for other jobs, and like nothing was working. Like, when God doesn't want something for you, you can try any which way, and you can just keep trying and trying, and if it's not meant to work out, it's not meant to work out. And I felt like at that point nothing was working. I felt like I was fighting myself, I was fighting the Lord. I felt like I was fighting the people around me, because I was like, it's not for lack of trying. Like, of course I'm trying, but how can you explain to people, especially when you're so aligned, when you're so in tune, that if God doesn't want something for you, it's literally not going to happen. Like, there will be blocks, there will be obstacles that will get in your way and stop you, because that is not your path. That is not what's meant for you. And what's meant for you, of course, will never pass you by, right? Like things happen with ease. It should never be that hard. If you're in flow, I feel like it should never be that hard, and it usually isn't. Because anytime it was meant for me to get a specific job, sign up for a specific job, be interviewed, whatever the case may be, every single thing, as I'm saying this out loud, it happened with ease. It happened with ease and alignment, serendipity. It didn't happen with like me forcing it. I'm just receiving that right now because I'm in a similar place again. So, for a few months, didn't have work. And then I was like, you know what? I just want to get myself out of the house. So I messaged a friend that I had at a crystal shop, almost 2 hours away in Charlottesville, nearby where my mom was. And I was like, I know, because when I was living in Charlottesville, I was commuting to work in Woodbridge. Now that I'm in Woodbridge, I'm like, okay, I'm going to commute to Charlottesville. Talk to this person. They were like, yeah, actually, we do need help. So I was like, okay, great. I'm in. Took that job for a couple months, and of course it was exhausting, and it was enough to just barely make ends meet. But it got me out of the house. It got me back to like getting dressed again, like getting back to a place of communicating with people, being around people. And this time it was like, okay, I was just a body in the shop. I didn't have to be the boss. I didn't have to be in charge. I didn't have to be in control. This was a completely different role for me. This was me going basically back to sales associate, starting at ground zero, which was always a fear of mine because I was like, I've worked so hard to be up to management. Why would I start over? Why would I do that? But in this situation, I was like, hallelujah. I don't have to be the boss. I don't have to make the rules. I don't have to be responsible. I'm in. Like, I'll just show up and do my thing and it's all good. And it was. I really enjoyed it, honestly. Like, I was bonding with people, I was meeting people. Like, I was really stepping into, I feel like, my most courageous and authentic. I have a Leo rising, and this was happening around Leo season. So like I just felt like I was glowing. It was summer. I was tan. Like everything felt good. I felt like I was becoming more confident in myself, and I don't know, it just really felt like I was in a good place. And I was like, okay, like no, it's not going to be permanent, but for now, like this is all good. Of course, once they started talking about holiday season, I was like, I'm not going to be working here on Black Friday, my guy. Like it's not happening. I don't do those retail hours anymore. But then at the same time, I was like, whatever happens, happens. Like, because in the previous shop, I had worked Black Friday by myself and I didn't even think anything of it because I was like, oh, it was easy. Like, it's not like clothing retail or being at the mall, which I've worked plenty of those my whole life. So this ended up, I don't know, that time was a piece of cake. I was like, I can do this, is a piece of cake, easy. But then once, I started working at this new place and they kind of started bringing up once they started bringing up the holiday season, I was starting to feel that resistance in my soul. And I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. Like, not because I didn't, well, I mean, obviously didn't want to, but I was like, well, I just don't know how that's going to work. Also, because I have anxiety. I don't know how the weather is going to be. And so far, it hasn't been bad. But there was just a lot of things that were kind of coming up that I was like feeling more resistance towards. But I was like, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Like, just don't worry about it right now. And then I got into a car accident at the end of September. Quiet. Hey, please, please hold. Are you done? Done. Hey, enough. Quiet. No, look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Snowy. Come here. Come here. Stop. Snow. I just hate when they bark. It really triggers me. So I got into that accident, okay, and it was super jarring. Oh my god, and when that happened, it was another news flash because it was like I was so concerned. When I got into that accident, I wasn't even concerned about my own well-being, okay? I was concerned about the car. Luckily, I was driving the truck that day. So knock on wood, it wasn't bad as far as like the damage to the car goes. The damage to me though was a whole another level. But it wasn't until like, after I went into the ER and all of that, I was like, I didn't even think about my own well-being. I was concerned about a vehicle that can be replaced, but I wasn't even concerned about, I like hadn't even thought about what does this mean for me physically? What does this mean for me emotionally? Like, how do I feel? And it wasn't until like we left and then we were heading home and I was like, no, I have to go to the hospital. Like, I don't feel good. I'm in pain. Like, what's happening right now? And it really freaked me out. And that sent me down a whole nother spiral because I was like, then I got triggered by, the person that hit me because they were running their mouth at me. They were talking at me. They were just being really aggressive and in my face energy. And I was like, I need you to back up, buddy, because I don't even know you. I don't know what's going on. I need help. I'm not feeling good right now. Like it was a whole thing. Oh, God. And just to like think about that right now, it's like, ugh. But it started bringing up all the times I didn't advocate for myself, all the times I didn't speak up for myself, all the times I didn't feel safe or allowed to advocate for myself, to speak up, to take care of myself, to put myself first. All these things started coming up once that happened. And then I just like took me down a very heavy road for the next couple of months. And that was just end of September. So what? It was three and a half ish months ago, if that. So these last 3.5 months have literally been insane. Um, Started going to physical therapy, started really advocating for myself, like mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, really coming to terms with the places where I didn't allow myself ever to put myself first or to live in fear of not advocating for myself or not having the ability to stand up and advocate for myself. It literally took me back to my childhood and very like traumatic times of when that first happened, right? And so I just thought it was interesting because I was like, okay, we have this first eclipse of 2025 that, literally forced me to pick myself over somebody else's behavior and being like, no, actually, I'm not going to allow this anymore. And if I continue to allow this, how am I going to move forward in the rest of my life? I refuse to allow anybody to treat me like that ever again. I refuse to allow anybody to try to get me to conform, to use their power dynamics to have me live in fear and to not stand up for myself, or to have somebody, try to gaslight me, or not even gaslight me, but just try to persuade me to not listen to myself as opposed to what someone else is saying. Crazy. And so I feel like 2025 was a very big year for me to really step into my power of learning to really step up and speak up and not be living in fear, to have the courage to stand up for myself, even though it was difficult, even though it came with a price. I just feel like had I not done those things, like the price I would have paid would have been so much worse. Because you'll be stuck in a place that you don't feel like you should be in. You'll start building resentment towards people that you don't understand why they're treating you a certain way, or they'll never see why they're treating you that way because they have their own stuff that they refuse to address. And I just feel like once you really commit to the path of your well-being, your spiritual path, living authentically, being truthful, being compassionate, living in grace, living in gratitude, and really just focusing on your well-being, you can't go back from that because it's not going to feel right. Like you're going to be like, why did I allow this all of this time? which does happen. And I feel like there's a lot of grief and guilt and shame that comes up with that. But at the same point, I feel like it's such a beautiful moment because it's a moment of liberation. Like you're taking your power back, you're standing up for yourself, and you're saying, no, I'm not going to allow this anymore. And I don't care what you say, I don't care who you are, but I am sovereign. Like, you know, I can be autonomous. Like, I can have my autonomy. I can be on my own and not be afraid to speak my truth, to speak up, to advocate for myself, to talk about what my needs are, and not to continue to tiptoe around others who are not in a place of even wanting to remotely admit what their faults are. So I think it's a very transformative year for me, 2025. It's very exhausting. I'm tired, okay? Um but I don't know, I just feel like it's so important because I don't know. I feel like people are always saying, "Oh, well, you should do this and you should do that, blah, blah, blah." Like, you need to speak. And that's the thing. Like, I was also somebody who would say, like, you need to advocate for yourself and your needs are important and all that stuff. And then when it came down to myself, I wasn't practicing what I preach. I would do it partially, but it wasn't like to the extent that I'm doing it now. The extent that I'm doing it now is if I have to pick between me and you, my guy, it's going to be me. Like, that's just what it is now. If you're making me pick between your needs and mine, I have to pick myself because why would I continue to make myself uncomfortable for the sake of someone else who literally doesn't give a shit about me or also only cares about their own comfort, right? Like if this is picking and choosing, you have to pick yourself. Like you owe it to yourself to choose yourself because if you don't choose you, no one's going to choose you. And I feel like that was a really big lesson that I learned. Shit. Has definitely not been easy, but has it been worth it? I think so. um yeah, so 2025 was heavy. We're in early 2026 now. It is January 5th as I'm recording this. It's a Monday. I'm feeling very antsy. The energy that I've been feeling the last couple days is very like antsy. Like I feel like I should be doing something, but I don't know what it is. Like I just in my heart I feel like movement. Up here I feel movement. But I'm just like I don't even know where I'm supposed to be focusing this energy. I don't know where it's supposed to go. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I just feel like I know that I've been getting signals from the universe that I'm on the right track and that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm just really in a liminal limbo place right now of not knowing like what my next steps are because it's definitely not going back to retail. Okay. Not that there's anything wrong with that. My mom still works retail part-time. She enjoys it. She does what she does and it's all good. But I feel like I've just worked so hard to get myself to a place where I am having the ability now to explore and like do things on a different level. And I'm excited to see where things go, but I also don't really have a plan because everybody keeps talking about manifesting your desires. And I'm like, bitch, I don't even know what my desires are. My desires are to have a home with my husband, okay, to have a successful business of some sort where I am not clocking in and out every day working for someone else because I just can't do it anymore. I have to be on my own schedule. I have to have the freedom to wake up and have my cup of coffee, the freedom to wear whatever I want and express myself however I want and do whatever I want. The freedom to go walk my dogs in the middle of the day, the freedom to just be. So I don't really know where things are going. I don't know if anyone else does. Some people might have a plan. I don't know. Everyone's like, oh, well, you're not manifesting anything because you don't know like what you want. And I'm like, okay, no shit, Sherlock. But like, how do I figure out what I want? I don't know. I feel like I'm so low key. Like a bitch just wants to live. I want to help people. I want to spread awareness. I want to spread kindness. I want to spread self empowerment and like teaching people how to stand up for themselves and to advocate for themselves and to follow their intuition. Because again, that is something that I've been passionate about my entire life is having that inner knowing. Even before I knew what that meant, I was just like, no, you have to follow your gut. Like, you have to follow your intuition. There's a reason why it exists. Like, you need to follow that opposed to anything else. And it's true. But, like, what is this going to manifest this year? I literally have no idea. Like, it's a clean slate, starting over. I don't really have said community. I don't really have like a place to go. I don't know. I think I feel kind of stuck. Um, but also because like I just don't know like what I'm supposed to be doing or where I'm supposed to be going right now. I feel like I've been writing down, the things that I've been thinking about and the things that I want to do more of as far as like creating and just doing more art and like painting, sewing, collaging, like just doing things that I used to enjoy without thinking about the outcome. And I feel like that was kind of what was coming through earlier when I was talking about how when I first started, working with crystal jewelry and making crystal jewelry, it wasn't because I was like, oh yeah, I have to do this, I have to start a business. It was because like I was just feeling inspired. I was feeling crafty. It was something that I really enjoyed. It felt tangible and it just felt like I could express myself and like everything that I created was so intuitive. It was one of a kind. It wasn't, a repeat. It wasn't a copy. It was just like it was coming straight from the source. And so I want to do more of that. I just don't really know what that looks like right now. Because it's just been so transitional. And again, I'm still in physical therapy. Hopefully, it'll be over soon because I'm exhausted. It has helped me significantly, though. There's so much you don't know about your human body. And that freaks me out too because I'm like, people really just don't know. Like the amount of nerves that are in your body, the amount of shit that's in your back, like your entire spinal column is what's keeping you intact and together. And, tying that into spirituality and your own growth, I feel like the more I started going to physical therapy, the more they were working on my body. It was like literally the more they were working on my body was working on my mind and my soul. Like it was bringing up all of these sensations, all of these feelings, all of these memories, like all this stuff was coming up. And I was like, why am I surprised? I literally study this stuff. Like, this is the stuff that I'm interested, but it's like, you literally don't know everything. And I feel like until the right time, things don't click until it's the right time, right? Like, you can go over something a million times, but it doesn't click, I feel like, until it's meant to. That feels cryptic also, but also like a message. And I feel like that's just a reminder for me because right now with how antsy I feel, like I have my dad on my ass, I have my husband kind of on my ass, everyone's just like, just do something, and I'm like, okay, but I can't just do anything. Like if I feel resistance to it, if it doesn't feel right and I'm forcing myself to do it, it's not going to go anywhere and it's not going to become what it needs to become, you know like it has to happen with ease and flow. And I feel like right now, I don't really know what that thing is. We have a couple of ideas and stuff, but so far, like, I don't know, I don't feel super drawn to anything right now. Like, expressing myself, yes, definitely one. Kind of getting back into the flow of like doing readings and providing guidance and things like that. Like wanting to be more consistent and showing up that way, but also in different ways so I'm not stopping myself or hindering myself. I don't know, it's kind of where I'm at right now. So I just kind of want to show up. Excuse me. but also show up and like do things in different ways because obviously if you don't try it a different way, then you're never going to know. So, trying to do readings in different ways, posting videos in different ways, not stopping myself from doing it, even though my brain's like, don't even bother. Like, nobody cares about what you have to say. Nobody cares about your messages. Like, you're literally crazy. These are the constants of what I'm going through. And I know that I'm not the only one, but, you know, I just want to show up with purpose and intention and put myself out there because I feel like, why wouldn't I? Anyway, I've yapped on for long enough. So, rock and roll. I love you guys. I hope that, I don't know, this resonated with somebody. And if you found any kinds of helpful wisdom in here, or if anything resonated, please let me know. Like, share, and subscribe.